Welcome to another video tutorial. In this video, we're going to take a look at the topic of currency, as well as taking a quick introductory look at how to set up shops in RPG in a Box. The main focus of this video will be explaining how to set up and use currency. This will include how to set up your own custom currencies as well. And we'll also talk about how to convert items into currency. And I'll explain why that's necessary when that comes up. And then, as I say, we'll also take a quick look at setting up stores as well. So let's start by, first of all, taking a look at how does currency work inside RPG in a Box. So if we click the Stats tab along the top, and in the Character Stats section, if you scroll down to the very bottom, you'll see a stat called Currency. And this is where your in-game currency will be stored. So whenever you want something to cost something, this will be where you store how much of that the player has. So if your player starts with 100 currency, then you would set this stat to be 100. So if we run the game quickly, so here we are in the game. So if I press I, it brings up the inventory widget, and you can see that our currency is currently 0. And if we bring down the console, and we type print, and the way to access your currency is you type the entity, in this case player, .stat, and then within the square brackets, speech marks, and then currency. And that will show us how much currency we currently have, which is 0, which lines up with what our inventory is showing. So if you want to give the player currency, then what you have to type is player.stat currency and then plus equals and then the amount that you want to give them. So let's say we give the player 50 currency. As soon as I press enter, you'll see that the currency in my inventory has gone up to 50. And if I reprint that stat, you can see it's been set to 50. So this number on your inventory is tied to this stat here. And you set the number by adding or deducting an amount from it. So for example, if we wanted to remove 20, we would just say minus equals 20, and this will go from being 50 to 30, like that, okay? And if you want to set it, you would just say equals. So now that will actually equals 20. So you can set it as well, okay? So that's how the inventory works that's how the currency works behind the scenes. Obviously, that's not what you're going to do when you're making your game. This is just to show you in testing how these things work, okay? But we have the inventory, which contains this text and also this stat. So how does this work? So let's go back to the engine. And let's go to the UI editor. Now, we can't directly edit the internal widgets. So things like the inventory and the equipment. You'll see there's a padlock icon, which means we can't select or move around any of the elements on these widgets. But what we can do is we can select the one which we want to take a closer look at, and we can just duplicate it by clicking the duplicate widget button. So we'll click that and we'll call this inventory 2. Okay, and we'll press enter. So this will create our own inventory, and let's just give it a different name just so that it stands out. So let's just call this my inventory just so we know we're using the custom one. Okay. And if we click this text, this is the one that shows our currency, we can see that this is the text that's inside it. So just to retype it, just so you know how to create it for yourself, what you would do is you would type the text you want. So in this case, we could have money, space, and then you click insert expression, and you scroll down to where it says player stat. So just here, and then you scroll down and select currency and click OK. And that will fill in as money and then player stat currency. Okay. Now, if we want to use, let's just save that. If we want to use our custom inventory, what we need to do is open our character in the voxel editor, scroll down in their settings to where it says inventory widget and change it from the default one to the one we duplicated. Okay, so if we now save and run the game again, if we press I now, here's my inventory with the money text instead of currency. But same thing again, it still uses the stat currency. So if I type player.stat currency and I give the player 100, this should still show 100 when I press enter. Okay, so taking a closer look, you can see the text here, player.stat currency. So this is literally all I'm typing in the scripting side of things is player.stat currency, and then after the currency you'd put plus equals and then the amount, or minus equals and the amount, if you want to give or take away from this stat, and that will give the player an amount of currency that they can then spend on items in your game. Okay, so let's take a look at setting up an example where we have some currency and then we can buy something with that currency. So we have some items here. So let's say we have a scroll of healing, which we're going to buy. Okay, so what you want to do is find the item in your items editor, which you want to buy, purchase, scroll down in its properties and look for the cost section. And you'll have two boxes, one which is an input box for the amount, and then one which is a drop-down list of currencies that you have available. Now, in a brand new project, the only currency you have available at the moment is the inbuilt base currency, okay? But we will be able to add a custom one in a moment, and I'll show you how to do that. But for now, let's say this costs 40 base currency, okay? So you would type in your number, in this case 40, and then you would save your item. Let's change it to 30, just so that I can save the changes. Okay, so this can cost 30 currency. What I've also done is I've created a dialogue called shop dialogue, and it's just a little example dialogue where the NPC says, welcome to my little shop, would you like to see what I have for sale? And then the player gets a choice of either saying sure, and then that will show the shop widget, which we'll get to in a minute. We haven't created it yet. Or we can say not right now, just passing by, and they'll respond, and then that will be the end of the dialogue. Okay, so we're going to set that on the NPC, which I think I've already done. Yep, so you just select the NPC, and when player interacts, start dialogue, and then the dialogue is shop dialogue. Okay, and that will do that. So what we need to do now is we need to create the shop. So let's create a new widget by clicking the plus button, and we'll call this shop. And what we're going to do is we're just going to add, for now, just a shop item slot into the widget. We can make this as big as we want, so let's make this a little bigger, just because for now we're only going to sell one thing, which is that scroll. So we'll put this over there, and then what you do is with it selected, you go to the properties for it, and you set the item, in this case the scroll, and then you can set how many items does the shop have in stock. 0 would be unlimited, or you can say just 1, okay, or 2, or however many, okay. And what we'll also do is we'll put a text label just here, which I'm going to put as 2 lines, and I'm going to put scroll of healing, and I'm actually going to put it underneath just so I've got more room. And on the line below, 30 currency, just so you know how much it is. Or you could put a custom initials. Like that. Okay, so that's sort of a sort of little shop. In fact, let's put this in the center. That'll do. Let's put a close button on the widget. And we'll call this Sarah's shop. Okay, so let's save that. So now we need to set this to open in the dialog. So the widget ID is shop. So we go back to our dialog. And here, instead of show widget blank, we can now fill this in with show widget shop. And that will now present the shop widget when we say, let's have a look at what she's got for sale. So that's that. And then I think, the only other thing we need to do is we need to give the player some currency. Now, what I'm going to do is, one thing you could do is you could go to your startup script and you could type into here player.stat currency plus equals, and then however much currency you want the player to start with, whether it be 500, 100, 1,000, whatever, okay? However, I'm going to show you another way which we could give the player currency. Well, it's not really another way, but I'm going to show you another thing that we could do with this, which would be, in my opinion, slightly better. So we'll cancel that for a moment. Because if we go to the available functions in our script, in the visual script editor, we can see that we've got a few useful commands like give item, give loot, give skill, give quest. But there's no give currency or give money, which would be really handy. Now, although it's not available to us, we could make one. And that would just make life a lot easier if you could just type in your code, give money, and then the amount. So that's what we're going to make. We're going to make a custom function. So go to the game configuration section, go to global functions, and we're going to type function space give, and you could call it give currency or give money. I'm going to call it give money just because it's then easier to type. Open and close parentheses, begin, and then end semicolon after that. And then within the parentheses, I'm going to pass in three, well, for now I'm going to pass in two, but we're going to come back to this function later and we're going to add in a third, and I'll explain why, but we're not ready for that yet. So the first parameter is $person, comma, $amount, okay? And then all this function is going to do, press tab, all this function is going to do is the following code. $person dot stat, open and close square brackets, speech marks, currency, equals, or plus equals, $amount. And validate. And that is our give money function. Simple as that. But now means that in our startup script, we can now type give underscore money, and then we'll just pass in player, because we want to give the player, let's say 100 currency. So now the player will start with 100 currency, because player will get filled in as $person and 100 will get filled in as $amount. So what our function will do is it will then give the player .stat currency the 100. Yeah. And the nice thing about this is very versatile. For example, if you had a party member, you could say give money party.member and then their member ID. So let's say Justin was a member of our party, Justin won, and then let's say we give him 50 gold or 50 currency, sorry. That would be how you would then do that, because then party member Justin won would become $person and 50 would be $amount. So again, in the function, it would give party member Justin .stat currency. So give his version of that stat, that amount. So the nice thing, as I say, about this function is it's now just much more easy to use. You just type give money. It makes sense what it is. It's give money, who you're giving it to, and how much. Okay. But behind the scenes, it's filling in the player stat or filling in the correct entity stat for this parameter. Okay. So there's our startup. So we're giving the player 100 currency at the start of the game. And then when you talk to Sarah, it will open the shop, and the shop widget has a scroll for sale that costs 30 currency. So when we buy this, it should deduct 30 currency from our available funds. So let's test the game. So here we are in the game. So let's check that our startup script worked. So you can see we've got 100 currency. So it gave us the 100 at the beginning using the give money function. Let's go talk to Sarah. Welcome to my little shop. Would you like to see what I have for sale? Let's say sure. And it brings up Sarah's shop. And we have a scroll of healing that costs 30 currency. So in order to buy something, when you have a shop item slot, you just double click. And if you have the right amount, it will remove it. There we go. So if we close Sarah's shop and open our inventory, we have the scroll of healing, and our money has gone down by 30 currency. So we went from 100 down to 70 as a result of spending 30 on the scroll of healing. Okay, so let's close that and go back to the editor. So another thing that we could do to add a couple of bits of embellishment to this is let's set it so that when you close Sarah's shop, she says something afterwards. So what we can do for that is we have an on-close script for a widget. So let's just quickly make a quick script. Close Sarah's shop. And this can literally just be, in fact, let's do it via the visual editor, and it's easier. This is going to be a character. We will need to set up an entity ID for Sarah. So I'll give her the ID of Sarah1 in a minute. So Sarah1 can say something like that, just like a sort of thank you for, purchasing something type thing. And then we'll put that on the widget on close Sarah shop. So now I forgot to set up the ID. Let me do that. So you have to click Sarah first, and I have to give her the ID Sarah1 that we're going to use for that. What I'm also going to do, while I think about it, is quickly create a portrait for Sarah. So capture portrait, just so that when she talks in dialogue, there's a picture. So that will be set as a portrait. So now we can test. So welcome to my little shop. Would you like to see what I have for sale? Yes, please. Let's buy the scroll. And then if we close Sarah's shop, thanks for shopping at my little store. Yeah, so you can have things, dialogue continue afterwards. And if you wanted to, you could have a separate dialogue file. So if you wanted a whole series of dialogue to happen after you've closed the shop, then instead of just having a display message, you could either have a scripted set of display messages, or you could have a whole new dialogue file be triggered with the start dialogue function. Okay, so I've remembered how to do the other thing that I was going to do as well, which is what I want to do is, while this is open, while Sarah's shop is open, I want to have a script running in the background. So what I'm going to do is, in the dialogue editor, when we open this widget, I'm going to execute a script. Which we will create, which I'm going to call check check supplies, that'll do. So we're going to execute a script, which we're going to call, in this case, check_supplies. So let's just quickly save the dialog and create that script. Check supplies. So this script is going to set a global property, shop open equals true, because it will be currently open because we've just opened the widget. And then what we'll do is we'll say while global.property shop open is equal to true, do, and then this is what we want to check. If widget, and the widget is called shop dot element, and the element is in this case the shop, the slot that has the scroll in it. That's 001. I'll show you that in a second. Dot item, that will be the item inside it, is equal to null, then end, then widget shop dot element 0002, which should be the label that's underneath it, dot text is equal to sold out. So this is so when you buy the item and it detects the item's no longer in the slot, it should change the text underneath it. Instead of saying scroll of healing for 30 currency, it should then just say sold out, and apply and save. So we're basically, let's just, why is that erroring? Oh, I spelled element wrong, of course. It's always a typo. Right, this will obviously be looping. So while the shop is open, it's going to constantly be checking if that is ever null, okay? And then what we'll need to do is when you close Sarah's shop, let's open that script up again, as well as showing the display message. What we also need to do first is then turn off that global property so that it stops looping all the time. So global property, what did I call it? I need to open it again. Shop open, simple enough. Global property shop open now is equal to false. Okay, apply and save. So now if we run this again, welcome to my little shop. Would you like to see what I have for sale? Yes. So we have scroll of healing at the moment, but as soon as I buy it, sold out, because it's detected that this slot is empty, i.e. the item is equal to null. So then it changes the text underneath to sold out. Okay, and then we can close that. Thanks for shopping at my little store. Open our inventory. We've got the item and we've had our currency deducted. Okay. So that is very simply, you could end the video here if all you want to do is use the base currency and set up shops that sell things. Hopefully this should put you in good stead to now go off and fill up your shop inventory widgets with all the things you want to buy and how much they should cost and all of that. But now let's take a look at how do you create your own currency and how do you set items to cost different amounts with different things. Like, you might have gold and you might have silver or rubies or diamonds or something, and you want items to cost different amounts of different things. So let's take a look at that now. So in order to create your own custom currency, what you need to do is you need to go back to the stats tab and you need to add your own custom stat first. So click the add stat button and let's create a currency. Let's just create one diamond and we'll just call it lowercase diamond. Okay. Now, as well as the stat name itself, you can also set a maximum value. So if it's impossible for the player to have more than, let's say, 500 diamonds in their, personal inventory bank account type thing, then you can set that here. So as soon as the player has 500 of this stat on them, it won't go any further. So it's up to you to set that for how much you want. So in this case, we'll set it to 1,000. Or we could put it back to the same as the diamond, the currency. Okay, so save that. And then that's just the stat, however. You then need to scroll down to the very bottom here where you have the currency section. And what you need to then do is add another currency underneath the base one. So click add. And this is where you're going to type in the actual name as it's going to be displayed. So we'll type diamond in capitals. And then the associated stat. This is the important bit. You want to drop this down and select diamond. In this case, your stat that you created earlier, just up here, will now be visible. If you do it first and save, it will be visible in this drop-down list. So you can now set the stat diamond as your custom currency, as your custom currency stat. Basically, it's the associated stat. So the inner workings behind the scenes, it's going to be adjusting this stat here, player.stat diamond. Just to be clear, when it says here that these are all player stats, every entity has these as well. So if we wanted, for example, to give Sarah some currency, she has an ID of Sarah_1. So in your script, if you wanted to give her, on startup, let's say, wanted to give her some currency, you would just, well, again, you do give money. But in this case, it would be entity, and then the ID, Sarah1, and then the amount that you would give them, okay? So if you wanted a store owner to actually have some money for whatever reason, then you can do that this way as well. Now, let's take a look at this function, because I did say I was going to add a third parameter to make this function a bit more useful. Because at the moment, we're giving the player, or we're giving the entity currency all the time. But what we could do is we could make this function a bit more useful. So let's go back to our function and edit it, and let's add the third parameter, which is going to be $. I'm going to type currency and hope it works. Yeah, okay, accepts it. So we're going to have $person, $currency, $amount. So now what we can do is we can do $person.stat, and instead of hard coding in the stat currency, we can pass in $currency. So these are all variable things. These are things that can change. So what that means now is if we validate this, what we can do in this case, in the beginning of the game, is we can give the player two types of currency with the same, well, not the exact same function. It would have to be two instances of it. But what I mean is we can type currency, and that will give the player 100 currency. And then we can copy this. And we can also give them 100 diamond. So the same command can now be used to give the player different currencies for what they need. Okay. However, let's just go back to setting up the diamonds. We haven't finished yet. So going down to here, we haven't given it an image. So you can obviously, give your custom currency an image. Now, the way I'm going to do this is I'm very quickly going to create an item, just quickly and temporarily, just so I can get to the image editor. So I can create a diamond PNG, and we'll just create a quick rough diamond. Doesn't have to be perfect. So in fact, let's make it lighter on the top, and then slightly darker I'm not going to be too neat with it. It just has to roughly resemble what it's supposed to be. That'll do. Okay, so there's our extremely rough diamond thrown together just for the tutorial. Okay, so now what we can do is we can delete the item, because I don't need the item just yet. I just need the image. So now I can go back to my stats, and I can now set diamond as my currency image. Okay. So what we can then do is we can go to our custom user interface for our widget, for our inventory that we copied earlier. And I'm going to get rid of this row of inventory slots just so I can give myself 2 currency on screen at the same time. So what I'm going to do is add another image. And this is going to be set to diamond. And we'll set this to the same size as the coin one above it. It's a bit squished, so I'm going to kind of do it like that. And then we'll add our text label in. Fill that out. And then get rid of the text. And we'll type diamond colon space insert expression player stat, scroll down, find diamond. Your custom stat will be in here when you've set it up. Player.stat diamond. Click OK, and then that will now give us the diamonds. So we've got our startup script that's giving us currency 100 and diamond, let's just say 70, just so it's different. So we can tell the two are very different to each other. And we'll just test that that's working. So if I open up my inventory, they go money 100, diamond 70. So you can have 2 different currencies on screen at the same time, okay, on your inventory at the same time. I'm just going to put that over there. So that's a bit neater over there, I think. Okay, so I wonder what that would look like if we squished it. In fact, there, that works. Let's do that. Right, so there's our inventory sorted out, but now let's go back to our shop and let's set an item like, for example, the Thieves Guild book to cost diamond. So what you do is you go to the cost section, just like we did with the Scroll of Healing, where we set it was 30 currency, but this time we'll set this to diamond in the what's the currency, and well, let's say it costs 50 diamond, okay? Click OK on that, and then we can go back to our shop UI, and now we're going to have 2 items, so we'll make this slightly smaller. We'll let's put that over there, and let's see if we can fit that alongside it. Going to make this a bit narrower, like so. So we can put another item underneath it, shop item slot. And this is going to be the Thieves Guild. And again, let's just say there's 1 of them, okay? And then we'll have another text label that's got the text. What was it, 50? I can't remember what I set it to. Something like that. Let's just check. Items 50, yeah. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing in the shop script. Check supplies. While this is true, what we'll also do is check if widget shop element 003 dot item is null, then I assume it's 4, but let's just check. Yeah. Then 4's text should then become sold out if that's empty. So we should now have a fully working shop where we can buy a scroll for 30 currency and a Thieves Guild book for 50 diamonds. Okay, so let's test that. So let's buy the scroll. Sold out. Let's buy the book. Sold out. Thanks for shopping. Open the inventory. 2 books. And both the money and the diamonds has gone down by the respective cost. Okay? So, obviously, it goes without saying that you don't have to use the inbuilt currency. You could completely just remove that from the user interface and just have your custom currency. You know, if you only want diamonds, for example, in your game as the currency, you don't have to have the stat currency being used at all. Once you've set up your custom one, in this case diamond, you could just use that entirely. Or you can, as you can see here, mix and match them if you want, you know, one thing to cost currency and one thing to cost diamonds. One thing to show you while we're on topic, because this is relevant, if we run the game again, there is a slight visual bug with shops at the moment, but it's an easy one to fix. So I'll show you the bug first, and then I'll show you how to fix it. So if we hover over the scroll of healing, we get no text other than the item name, in this case scroll of healing. If I hover over the Thieves Guild, it actually gives me the description of it, a brief history, how many uses of it there is, in this case 0, but also that it costs 50 diamond. Now all of that is correct. However, the bug is if I hover over the scroll of healing again, it's the same, exact same, everything but the title. The title is correct, it's the scroll of healing, but the description, the uses and the cost has been copied over from the Thieves Guild book. Notice how the Thieves Guild is a brief history and it's 50 diamond, and so now is the scroll of healing. It's an easy bug to fix, so let me show you how to fix it. So to fix this bug, what you need to do is go to the stats editor, scroll down to the currency section, click on your base currency, and you just need to fill in a currency name. So we may as well just fill in currency. It really doesn't matter what you type, even if you type the exact same thing as what it actually is. It's just because there's nothing in there by default, it creates that problem. Okay, let's call it money actually, because that's what we've got on our inventory. So we may as well call it money. Okay, so if we now save and run it again, if we hover over the scroll of healing now, we can see it actually has its own correct mouse over text. It's a scroll of healing. It's got 1 use and it costs 30 money. And now if we hover over the Thieves Guild, we get that it's 50 diamond. But if we mouse over the scroll of healing, we get the correct info. Okay, so it's costing us 30 money for that and 50 diamond for that. Okay, so if you want to fix the mouse over text, it's because your currency doesn't have a default name. So just make sure you give it a currency name. So just to show that again, that's here. Just fill this box in, because by default, it will look like that. It will have currency written in there, but it's empty. So just type something in. As long as some text is in here, even if it's currency, even if you just retype the word currency, as long as there's something in there, then that bug will be fixed. Okay? So, the last thing I want to show you before we close out is how do you convert an item into currency? Now, why is that an issue? Let's say, for example, we want to make it so that in our map, you open this barrel and inside there are some diamonds, okay? Or money or whatever, right? Whatever your currency is, okay? So what we can do is we can click item container, turn that on, okay? And we want to put some currency, diamond in this case, in this container. The problem is, if we scroll down to the available items, diamonds or currency or whatever, money, is not listed in this list. And the reason is simple. These are items, but currency, diamonds and things like that are stats, and the two are not the same. So we need an item to go into here. So then what we need to do is we need to make a, in this case, diamond item. So let's quickly do that. So we'll just make an item called diamond. And we're going to call this a shiny diamond. And the image can be the diamond that we made earlier, okay? And it can cost 1 diamond. Makes sense, right? And let's say it's stackable and you can have, let's just say 100 in one stack, okay? So, let's save that. And what we then want to do is go to our map, and we can now add this diamond item to the barrel. And let's say there's 20 in the barrel, okay? But we've got another problem. We've got an item in this barrel, which, great, you can take it and it will go into your inventory, but it won't go into your stat. Because again, items and stats are 2 completely different things. So now what we need to do is we need a way to automatically convert the diamond item into diamond currency when you take it. And that is a little bit more complicated than you might think. So if you want to know how to do that, then keep watching the video as I show you how to do that. It's going to be a bit of scripting, okay? But if you're happy to just end the tutorial here, all you wanted to know was how do you set up custom currency and you don't really care about picking it up from barrels and containers and things, then that's fine. But if you do want to know, then let's go into that now. So a big part of this that we're going to need to resolve is how to count the amount of something in your inventory. Now, just to make life easier for myself, I'm going to make a function for that, okay? So I'm going to go back to the global functions section of the game configuration panel, and I'm going to create a new function which I'm going to call count item, or count items. I'll call it count item. And then it's going to pass in the item ID. So you'll pass in the item ID and then it will count that item. So begin and end. So within this function is going to be the code for our count item function. So what we need is 2 variables. $slot num is going to be equal to 0. And then we need $item count is also going to be equal to 0. So 2 variables that just get initialized at the beginning of the function that start out as 0. And then what we want to do is create a for loop. So for $I, the variable name can be anything, but for $I in player dot inventory do end. So there's our for loop. So what this is going to do is this is going to count through our inventory slots, okay? And while you do that, every time you loop through a one of the inventory slots in our inventory, we want the slot number to go up by 1. So that will count through how many slots we have in our inventory, okay? As I say, this is a bit of a long-winded process, but it kind of has to be done. But the nice thing about putting it in a function is that we can then, in our actual code of our game, we can just call this function and it'll just be a lot easier. So we do the hard work first and then we can benefit from it afterwards. So we then need to check if $slot num is less than 10. So this is just because you've got to think that the reason for this particular if check that we're doing now, just put an end in, is with widgets, you have element IDs, right? So you have element, I'll just explain. This is not the code, I'm just explaining it. So when you refer to widgets, you have these element IDs, right? Like 001, for example. But if you ever reach a double-digit number, i.e. if it's over 10, then instead of being 000, it will be 0010, for example. So what we're doing here is we're just checking if the ID is less than 10. If it is, then we now want to check if widget, and this is going to be our custom inventory that we've created. So inventory2 dot element, and this is where this comes in. If element 0, 0, in this case 0, dollar open and close squiggly brackets, dollar slot num, close speech marks, dot item, oops, what's going on there, dot item not equal to null, then again end. Make sure you end all your ifs as you create them, because then you'll always have the same amount of ends as you do ifs and fors, and that way you won't get errors later on. So if it is not null, then we want to create another variable called item, which is going to equal widget inventory2 dot element 0, 0, 0, dollar open and close squiggly brackets, dollar slot num dot item. And don't worry, I will explain everything that this is doing once we've finished creating it. We need one more if statement within here. So if dollar item dot id is equal to dollar item id, then again enter twice, type end, semicolon, go back up, press tab, dollar item count. I did say it was a bit complicated, but I'll show you what it does in a minute. Plus equals, and then widget inventory2 dot element 0, 0, 0, dollar open and close squiggly brackets, dollar slot underscore num dot item dot count, and then end. So what we then need is an else to this. So scroll down to where we've got this end here. So you see how it's in line? This is the advantage to, making sure you do your enters and your tabs as you're creating the ifs. So we want to put an else to this if, the if slot num less than 10. So we want to press enter here and type else, and then enter and tab, okay? And what we're actually going to do is copy everything that's underneath this particular if and put that down here and just make some minor adjustments. So this is going to be if widget element 0, and just delete one of the zeros, and delete one of the zeros, and delete one of the zeros. Okay? And then just before the last end, so this one here, press enter, you want to type return, and then dollar item underscore count. Just check validate, make sure that compiles fine. We just have one last look over before I explain what that's doing. Okay, so what this function is essentially going to do is it's going to loop through the inventory, and it's going to check each slot and check if there's an item inside it. If there is an item, it's then going to store that item inside this variable. It's then going to check the ID of that item and check if it's the same as the one we've passed in to count. If it is the same, then it's going to store inside this variable the count of that item, i.e. how many of that item is in your inventory. and it's going to basically do that for every slot in your inventory. And it's just going to keep adding that onto this variable. At the end of that, once it's finished counting through your inventory, it's going to return the total at the very end back out to the script that called it. Okay, so let me show you how we use this. So we'll click OK. That's our script. So hopefully that validated for you and you didn't have any errors there. So let's save the map. So what we want to do now is we want to create a global property. Now we could create it in the global property section, or we could just go ahead and put it in a script. I'm actually going to do it here anyway, just to make sure we have it. This is going to be a string global property. Oh, no, it's not. Sorry. Delete that. It's going to be a Boolean global property. And it's going to start false. And we're going to call this container open. I'm going to put an underscore in there. Container underscore open. Okay. And this is going to check whether we're currently looking inside this barrel or not. Okay. So what we then want to do is click the barrel and we want to scroll up to where it says on open script when we open this container. So we want to create a script, which I'm just going to create a new one called open barrel. And this script is going to simply do two things. It's going to set the global property that we just created, global property container open, to true. So it now knows it's open. And we're also going to execute script. And we'll create a script which we will call convert. Or we can specify convert currency. Okay. So we will apply and save that. And we can now put that on our barrel. So when we open the barrel inventory, the container, first we want to run open barrel. When we close the barrel, we also want to create a script called close barrel, which is going to unset that global property. So this is going to be insert expression global property container open equals false. Apply and save. So we can put those two scripts now on our barrel. Open barrel, close barrel. So when we open it, it'll be true, and when we close it, it'll be false. But we also are executing a script when we open the barrel as well. The reason, by the way, we're doing execute script, we're also doing it, don't forget, on Sarah as well. In the dialog, we got this execute script, is we want the, in this case, if we didn't execute the script and we just put the code that we're about to write directly inside the open barrel script, it would never show the actual container. It would never show the inventory for the barrel, because we're going to create a while loop, and that will just keep looping instead of showing the inventory. So by putting execute script in this script, it will do the loop alongside opening the inventory. Okay, so as long as you follow it, it will work. But just if you wanted to understand why we're doing it, that's why. So let's create a new script called convert currency, and this is going to be the script that gets called by our open barrel script. So what this is going to do is this is going to loop while global.property container open is equal to true, then whiles have do instead of then. We then want to check if player.inventory contains item 00 and then whatever the diamond ID is, 4. So back to the script editor. So if our inventory contains that item, then here comes our all-important function. Okay, we're going to type $count $count equals count underscore item, and then we're going to pass in item 0004. So it's then going to count how many of this item, if it's found in our inventory, it's going to count how many of that item are in our inventory and store it inside $count. This, let's just go back to our function for a second. When it returns item count, after it's counted all the items, what the return does, is it takes that number at the end and it puts it into this variable. So any functions that have return something, you need to put the variable first, equals, and then your function, and that will return it into that variable, okay? So that's why we're doing $count equals and then our function. So now we've got how many of that item are in our inventory. What we can then do is remove item, in this case, item 0004, so get rid of all the diamond from our inventory. How do we know how many to remove? $count. So that will get rid of however many we've got in our inventory. And now what we can do is player.stat diamond plus equals $count. And so it'll take the amount of items we got and convert it into the stat of that amount instead. And I believe that is it. Oh, the only other thing we need is underneath the last but one end, type weight and then 0.1. If you don't put that, it has a tendency to crash. So make sure you put a weight in between just before the last end and apply and save. So let's just test that now. I also forgot to draw a nav line to the barrel so we can interact with it. So do that as well. Here you go. Try that one more time. Boom. Disappeared from there and it added it to my currency instead. Okay, so that's how you make an item that when you put it into your inventory, it will instead disappear from here and get converted into currency. Now, there's one more thing we could do to make this a bit more useful, a bit more versatile. Because at the moment, we are hard coding the diamond stat, but we could maybe make that a little bit more flexible. So what you could do instead is go to the item editor, find your currency item, in this case the diamond, and add a custom property, which is a string. And we're just going to add a property, which we will call currency, and we'll call this diamond. So it's the same. Make sure that what you type in the value is the same as the stat. So in this case, my stat is a lowercase diamond. So just like that. So make sure that is what you write in the value for your custom property of your custom currency item. Okay, save that. So now what we can do is we can go to our script where we're converting the currency, and what we can do is we can store $currency equals item $0004 dot property currency. So now what's going to be in here is the word diamond. Okay, so now what we can do is we can delete this and we can use our custom function. Give money player, pass in currency and $count. So now we don't have to hard code what the currency is. We can actually grab it from the item itself and then use that in the give money command. Okay. So now you click the barrel. So it opens up the barrel, click the diamonds, put in your inventory, and it converts even with the custom the property. It's using the property of the item to detect what the currency is and then setting that stat to the value. Okay, so hopefully that's made sense. And if you have any questions, obviously, on this particular aspect of the video, please do let me know. But that will also, I believe, bring to a conclusion this video on the whole topic of custom currency and shops and things. So hopefully it's been useful and it's covered all the things you would want to know about setting up shops. From here, I believe you can run with this and experiment and build upon this. But if you have any questions, anything that's been unclear or just something you want cleared up, please feel free to ask on the Discord. I'll be happy to answer any questions you would have on this. But for now, that will wrap up this video. Thanks for watching.